At 22, Amina lived a life that many would call ordinary, but she carried burdens that no ordinary young woman should ever bear. Her father had died when she was 12, leaving her mother to raise 3 children on meager wages. Life was hard in the slums of Lagos, but Amina had always dreamed bigger. She was beautiful, bright, and ambitious, but poverty had a way of keeping dreams just out of reach. One sweltering afternoon, Amina was walking home from her part-time job at a small cafe. The sun blazed mercilessly, and the heat pressed against her like a heavy weight. As she passed the wide gates of a private mansion, one she had always admired from afar, she noticed a sleek black car pull into the driveway. Out stepped a man who looked like he belonged to a world completely different from hers. Tall, sharply dressed, with piercing eyes that seemed to see right through her. He was unlike anyone she had ever met. "Excuse me," he called, his voice smooth and commanding. "Are you Amina?" Her heart skipped a beat. How did he know her name? "Yes, I am," she replied cautiously, unsure whether to be frightened or intrigued. "My name is Chief Emeka Obina," he said, bowing slightly. "I believe we have some matters to discuss that cannot wait." Amina blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't understand." "Why would a billionaire like you call me Emeka?" he interrupted gently, yet with an urgency that made her swallow hard. "I have little time, and life has not been kind to me. You see, I am dying." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Amina had heard of Emeka Obina, the billionaire tycoon whose wealth was matched only by his ruthless reputation. But dying, that was unexpected. I don't understand," she stammered. Emeka's eyes softened. "I need something from you, something precious, something that I cannot obtain from money, power, or influence." Amina felt a shiver run down her spine. What? What do you mean?" He hesitated, his gaze dropping to the ground. "I must have your virginity." The words were brutal. Amina stepped back, shocked and horrified. "How dare you? Who do you think you are?" "I know it is audacious," he admitted, his voice almost pleading. "But I am dying, and I have lived my life chasing everything but love. I have never known what it is to be truly human, to connect with someone who sees me, not my wealth. You are that someone. I beg you, please grant me this one wish before I leave this world." Amina wanted to laugh in disbelief, then cry. This could not be real. Yet there was something about the sadness in his eyes that unsettled her deeply. "You don't know me," she whispered. "You don't know my life, my struggles, my dreams." "I know more than you think," Emeka said. "I have watched you from afar, seen your resilience, your strength. I am not asking this as a transaction. I am asking as a man who has lived too long in loneliness, who fears the end without ever having known intimacy, love, or trust." Her heart raced, torn between disgust and curiosity. How could a man with everything still feel so incomplete? And yet Amina had always believed in destiny, in the strange ways life could twist and turn. Maybe this encounter was fate. "I can't just give myself to you because you ask," she said finally, her voice trembling. "I understand," he said softly, almost relieved, "but I will do everything I can to earn your trust, to prove that what I am asking is not cruelty, not lust, but a final chance to feel alive." Amina studied him. She had faced cruelty, hardship, and lies, but there was an honesty in him she could not deny. It frightened her. Yet, for reasons she could not explain, she found herself drawn to him. "Give me a week," she said finally. "1 week to think, 1 week to understand. If I can even consider this." Emeka smiled faintly, a mix of relief and gratitude shining in his eyes. "1 week is more than I could hope for." Little did Amina know that week would change the course of her life forever. A week that would force her to confront temptation, morality, and the deepest desires of her heart. For Emeka, time was running out. For Amina, a choice awaited that could either break her or define her. As she walked home, the sun setting behind the crowded skyline of Lagos, Amina could not shake the feeling that her life had just entered a storm she could neither avoid nor escape, and somewhere, deep in her heart, a whisper told her that this storm might just awaken something she never knew existed. Amina spent the next few days in a whirlwind of confusion. Her thoughts were a battleground between morality and curiosity, fear and intrigue, disgust and an inexplicable attraction. She had grown up in poverty, learning early that survival often meant saying no to the impossible. Yet Emika's plea had stirred something she did not fully understand: an interest, a fascination, a dangerous spark she could not ignore. On the second day, her curiosity overcame hesitation. She returned to Emika's mansion, heart pounding in her chest. The gates, always intimidating, now seemed like a threshold to a world she could barely imagine. Emeka greeted her in the courtyard, his smile warmer than before. "I'm glad you came," he said softly, gesturing for her to follow him into his study. The room was expansive, lined with books, portraits, and artifacts from around the world. But it wasn't the wealth that captured her attention, it was the emptiness, the palpable loneliness of a man surrounded by riches but clearly craving something far more human. "I've been thinking," Amina began, her voice tentative. "Why me? You could have anyone. Anyone you want. Why a girl like me?" Emika's eyes softened, almost painfully. "Because you are real. You are not afraid to speak your mind. You have survived hardship with grace. You have something I cannot be: honesty, purity of heart, courage. I do not ask because I see you as beautiful though you are, but because I see you as a soul worth knowing, worth cherishing." Amina felt her chest tighten. The words were intoxicating, yet they made her uneasy. "And if I say no, then I will respect your choice," he said quietly, leaning back in his chair. "I do not want to force anyone, but I must admit, I hope you do not say no." The days that followed were a delicate dance. Emeka showed Amina his world, the charity projects, the orphanages, the hospitals he had funded. He shared stories of his childhood, the ruthless ambition that had built his empire, and the regret that gnawed at him now. Each word, each glance, each moment revealed a man both powerful and vulnerable, terrifying and compelling. Amina, in turn, shared fragments of her own life, the struggles with her mother, the late nights working to pay rent, the dreams of one day becoming independent and respected. Emeka listened as if every word was a treasure, and slowly, the barrier of fear and judgment between them began to erode. One evening, as the Lagos sun dipped behind the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of orange and purple, Emeka invited her to the balcony. "Look at the city," he said, gesturing at the sprawling metropolis below. "All these lights, all these lives, and yet, sometimes, it feels like I am completely alone in the dark." Amina swallowed, feeling an unexpected sympathy. "I never thought of a billionaire feeling lonely," she murmured. Loneliness doesn't care about money," he replied. "It's about connection, about being seen, understood, loved." The air between them shifted, charged with unspoken tension. Amina felt her pulse quicken, her mind screaming warnings she almost wanted to ignore. Emeka reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, not in a possessive way, but with a tenderness that made her breath hitch. "I want you to know," he whispered, his voice barely audible, "that I do not desire you out of lust alone. I desire you because I want to feel alive, even if just for a moment. I want to be remembered not as a billionaire, not as a ruthless man, but as someone who truly experienced humanity." Her heart pounded. The mixture of vulnerability and intensity made her dizzy. She wanted to turn away, to flee, to remind herself that this was wrong. Yet, she found herself leaning slightly closer, drawn to the honesty in his eyes. That night, sleep eluded her. She tossed and turned, haunted by visions of Emeka, the way his eyes softened when he spoke of regret, the gentle way he had touched her hand, the vulnerability that seemed almost unbearable for a man of his stature. She had been warned countless times in her life about men like him: powerful, persuasive, dangerous, but warnings had never felt so personal, so immediate. By the fourth day, Emeka decided to let his feelings speak in a way words could not. He invited Amina to dinner in his private dining room. Candles flickered, casting soft shadows, and the table was adorned with fruits, pastries, and delicate delicacies from around the world. Amina, he said, standing as she approached, you have every right to leave. You can walk out right now, and I will never speak of this again. But if you stay, I promise only honesty, respect, and the truth of my intentions. She hesitated, looking into the deep brown of his eyes, the silence stretched, heavy with anticipation. Then she spoke, her voice trembling but firm. I will stay, but only to understand, only to see if what you feel is real. Emeka's relief was almost visible. He guided her to the chair opposite him, and as they dined, the conversation drifted from light topics to the painful realities of life, love, and loss. They laughed, they argued, they shared confessions that would have shocked anyone else. Was on the 5th day that Amina realized something she had been denying. She was beginning to feel something for him, not lust, not fear, but a complicated mixture of respect, pity, fascination, and an emotional pull she could not explain. Yet doubts lingered. Could she trust him? Could she allow herself to feel anything for a man who wanted something so intimate, so personal, under the shadow of death? On the 6th day, Emeka asked her to accompany him to his private garden. The place was serene, lush, with greenery and flowers, a stark contrast to the bustling chaos of Lagos outside. Amina, he said softly, tomorrow is the last day of your week to decide. I will not ask again. I need to know if you can trust me enough to grant me my final wish. Her heart ached. She knew the weight of this decision was immense, not just for him, but for her own soul. She felt trapped between duty and desire, morality and compassion, fear and something dangerously, like hope. I don't know if I can, she admitted, tears pricking her eyes. I don't know if I should. I want to trust you, but it's too much. Emeka's hand brushed hers again, gentle, not demanding. All I ask is that you listen to your heart, not your fear. I will wait as long as I can. That night Amina lay awake, haunted by his words, his gaze, the intensity of his plea. She realized that her life was no longer her own, at least, not entirely. And somewhere deep inside, a forbidden curiosity whispered that perhaps, just perhaps, her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. The 7th day arrived like a storm, intense, unavoidable, and fraught with emotion. Amina woke before dawn, her mind spinning with questions, fears, and desires she could not articulate. Every corner of Emeka's mansion now seemed suffused with his presence, his scent lingering in the air, the echo of his voice haunting her thoughts. Breakfast was silent, heavy with anticipation. Emeka watched her from across the table, his eyes searching hers for any sign of the choice she would soon make. Neither spoke, yet both felt the weight of destiny pressing down on them. Finally, Emeka broke the silence. Amina, today you will decide. I will not ask again. I respect you too much to pressure you, but I need to know, can I trust you? Can I have you? Not as an object, but as the only person who could make me feel alive one last time. Amina's heart raced. She wanted to run, to scream, to demand that this never happened, but at the same time, she felt an undeniable pull toward him, a combination of empathy, fascination, and the raw humanity he had revealed over the past week. I need to see you one last time, she whispered. I need to understand everything before I decide. Emeka nodded, rising from his chair. Then come with me. He led her through the mansion to a secluded room, a library unlike any other, filled with books, photos, and memories of a life filled with power but lacking connection. The air was heavy with the scent of old pages and polished wood, yet there was a softness here, a quiet intimacy that made Amina's pulse quicken. I want you to know something before you make your choice, Emeka said, his voice trembling slightly. I have lived my life chasing wealth, status, and influence, but I never chased love. I never chased understanding, respect, or the simple joy of connection. I am dying, Amina, and I fear leaving this world without ever having known what it truly means to be alive. Asterisk, Amina's eyes filled with tears. And you think you can find that with me? Asterisk, I don't think. I know, he replied softly. Not just with you, but because of you. You have shown me the humanity I never sought. You have reminded me that life is more than money, more than power, more than ambition. You have reminded me that there is beauty in honesty, courage, and even defiance. Asterisk, the intensity of his gaze, the vulnerability in his voice, shook Amina to her core. She realized, with a mixture of fear and longing, that she had begun to care for him not as a billionaire, not as a dying man, but as a human being stripped bare by regret and desire. Asterisk, and yet, the question remained, could she trust him? Could she give herself in a moment so intimate, knowing it was framed by his impending death? Asterisk, she began, her voice shaking. I don't know if I can. This is too much, too soon, too final. Asterisk, Emeka took her hands in his touch gentle but firm. I will not force you. I only ask that you consider not what this is, but what it could mean for both of us. This is not a transaction. This is a moment of truth, a chance to connect beyond fear, beyond social barriers, beyond life itself. Asterisk, Amina trembled. The room seemed to shrink around them, the world outside fading, until only the two of them remained. She felt her heart pull in conflicting directions, desire and fear, compassion and self-preservation, curiosity and morality. Asterisk, for hours. They talked, their voices soft, their confessions deep and revealing. Amina spoke of her childhood, the struggle to survive, the dreams she had buried under poverty and responsibility. Emeka spoke of his empire, his loneliness, and the regrets that had haunted him for decades. Asterisk, as night fell, the city lights glittering far below, Emeka leaned closer. Amina, whatever your decision, I will respect it, but I must confess, I am terrified of leaving this world without ever knowing you in the way I have hoped. Asterisk, Amina's resolve wavered. She saw the raw honesty, the human fragility behind his wealth and power. For the first time in her life, she felt a pull she could not resist, not lust, not greed, but something deeper, more primal, empathy, connection, the desire to comfort a man who had known everything but love. Asterisk, she began again, tears streaming down her face. I think I want to trust you. I think I want to help you feel alive, even if it's just for a moment. Asterisk, Emeka's eyes softened with a mixture of relief and reverence. Amina, you have no idea how much this means to me. Asterisk, they sat in silence, hearts beating in unison, the magnitude of the moment pressing down on them. Amina knew that whatever happened next would change them both forever. She had stepped into a world of unimaginable power, but also into a world of raw humanity that neither of them could escape. Asterisk, as Emeka gently took her hands, Amina realized something profound. This was not just about desire, wealth, or mortality. This was about trust, connection, and the fragile beauty of life itself. And in that understanding, fear began to give way to something else, something dangerously close to hope. Asterisk. Little did they know, however, that the world outside their private sanctuary had begun to stir. Secrets, rivalries, and jealous hearts waited just beyond the mansion gates, ready to challenge the fragile bond they had formed. Their choices tonight would not only define their lives, but could set off a chain of events neither of them could anticipate. Asterisk for now, though, in the quiet of the library, Amina made her choice not lightly, not easily, but with a courage born of empathy, understanding, and the rare spark of trust that could change even the most hardened heart. Asterisk, and with that choice, the night stretched before them, filled with both fear and anticipation, a final night that would test boundaries, awaken desires, and perhaps reveal the deepest truths of both their souls. The night was alive with a hush of anticipation, every shadow in the mansion seeming to whisper secrets only Amina and Emeka could hear. After days of conversations, hesitations, and guarded emotions, the moment of truth had arrived. It was no longer a question of morality or fear. It was about trust, desire, and the fragile beauty of connection that had slowly blossomed between them. Asterisk, Emeka led Amina to a smaller, dimly lit sitting room, warm, private, removed from the grandeur of the mansion. Candles flickered softly, casting long shadows across the walls, creating an intimate cocoon around them. Amina, Emeka whispered, his voice low and trembling. I do not want this to be just a moment of passion. I want it to be meaningful, a connection that transcends the limitations of time and circumstance. Do you understand? Amina swallowed hard, her heart hammering in her chest. I understand, she whispered back. She had never felt this mixture of fear, curiosity, and longing. It terrified her, yet she could not deny the pull she felt toward him. They sat in silence for a moment, their hands brushing occasionally, sending sparks through her entire body. Amina realized that this intimacy was far more than was the culmination of trust, vulnerability, and the raw honesty they had shared over the past week. I need to ask something, Emeka said, breaking the tension. If we cross this line, I want you to know you can stop at any moment. This must be your choice. Freely, completely. I will respect it, always. Amina nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I know. I want this, but I also need to know that you truly mean what you say. I swear it, Emeka said, his voice thick with emotion. Not because I am dying, not because I am desperate, but because I see you, truly see you. You are not just my final wish, you are my human truth. The words struck her like a wave, leaving her breathless. Slowly, hesitantly, she allowed him to take her hands, their fingers entwining in a grip that was both tentative and electric. As the night deepened, the mansion faded away. Outside, the world continued its noisy chaos, but inside that room, time seemed suspended. Every glance, every touch, every whispered word was an exploration not just of bodies but of hearts and souls. Emeka's hands were gentle yet confident, his eyes never leaving hers. You have no idea how much courage it takes for me to ask for this, to allow myself to feel alive again. But you make it possible. You make me believe that even in the end, there can be beauty, trust, and connection. Amina felt her resistance melting. She realized that this man, for all his power and wealth, was as fragile and human as anyone else. She allowed herself to lean closer, her pulse quickening, as desire, empathy, and trust intertwined. They crossed the line together, not just physically, but emotionally. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered confession wove a tapestry of intimacy that neither had ever experienced before. For Emeka, it was a chance to feel alive in the shadow of mortality. For Amina, it was a moment of power, trust, and understanding that transcended fear. Hours passed like minutes. When they finally rested, wrapped in the quiet afterglow of connection, Amina realized she had never felt so seen, so understood, so human. You are unlike anyone I have ever known, she whispered, her head resting against his chest. And you, Emeka replied softly, stroking her hair, have shown me the humanity I never sought but always needed. You have made me feel alive. The night was tender, intimate, and transformative. It was not just about passion, it was about trust, honesty, and the fragile courage it took to allow oneself to be truly vulnerable. But as dawn approached, a shadow of reality crept back into the room. Amina remembered the world outside, friends, family, gossip, and envy, and the complications that awaited her beyond the walls of this mansion. Emeka seemed to sense her thoughts. I know the world will not understand this, he said quietly. It may judge us, it may try to separate us, but for now, for this night, nothing else matters. Amina nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I know, but what happens after this? When you leave, when your time runs out? Emma gaze hardened with determination. Then I will treasure what we have shared, no matter how short. But I also hope that what we have is not just a fleeting moment. I hope it is the beginning of something extraordinary. As the first rays of sunlight touched the mansion, Amina realized that her life had changed irrevocably. She had crossed the line, yes, but she had done so with courage, understanding, and a heart open to the possibility of connection, even in the face of fear and uncertainty. Little did she know, however, that their night of intimacy had not gone unnoticed. In the shadows of Lagos, eyes watched, whispers spread, and the fragile world they had created began to face the harsh light of reality. Rivalries, jealousy, and secrets threatened to tear apart the bond they had forged, testing the strength of the trust and love they had just discovered. And yet, in that quiet, intimate dawn, Amina and Amika held on to each other, knowing that whatever the world threw at them, they had already discovered something precious: the truth of connection, the courage to trust, and the awakening of hearts that had long been dormant. The morning after their night of intimacy, the mansion felt different. The air seemed charged, heavy with unspoken tension, and Amina sensed that the outside world had already begun to stir. Despite the emotional connection she and Amika had shared, reality was waiting impatiently beyond the gilded gates. Amina was preparing breakfast when a soft knock came at the door. One of Amika's assistants, a sharp-eyed young man named Chaik, entered with a stack of documents. There was something in his expression of barely contained curiosity, a trace of judgment that made Amina uneasy. Miss Amina, Chief Obina asked me to give you these, Chaik said, handing her the papers without meeting her eyes. Amina accepted them silently, but as she glanced at the documents, she noticed they were not merely business papers, they were correspondences, legal documents, and notices from other wealthy associates. Messages warning Amika of rivals attempting to seize parts of his empire, whispers of betrayal from board members, and subtle threats disguised as friendly advice. She realized, with a sinking feeling, that Amika's world was far more dangerous than she had imagined. Wealth, influence, and power were accompanied by envy, greed, and hidden agendas that could strike at any moment. When Amika appeared in the kitchen, dressed sharply as always, his face lit up at the sight of her. "Good morning," he said warmly. "Sleep well?" Amina hesitated, her mind still on the paper. "Yes, but I see that even your empire cannot remain peaceful. People are plotting, scheming, trying to take advantage of your absence." Amika's smile faltered slightly, and a shadow crossed his eyes. "Yes, that is the reality I have lived with for decades. Trust is rare in my world. People see wealth and think they can manipulate it or take it. But you are different. You see me, not the money, and that terrifies them." Amina felt her chest tighten. "Then, what do we do? How can we protect ourselves?" Amika stepped closer, his presence commanding yet gentle. "We act carefully, stay vigilant, but above all, we protect what is real, what we share. The rest, the scheming, the jealousy, they cannot touch that unless we let them." Despite his words, Amina felt a creeping unease. The mansion, once a sanctuary, now felt like a stage for hidden dangers. She realized that their relationship, delicate and precious, was about to face challenges far beyond their control. By midday, the first sign of external conflict arrived. A powerful businessman, Mr. Okuro, a longtime rival of Amika, requested an urgent meeting. He claimed it was to discuss a potential partnership, but Amina, who had begun observing the subtle power plays of Lagos elites, sensed the threat immediately. The meeting was tense. Calm and composed, listened to Okuro's veiled threats and subtle manipulations. Amina observed from the side, her heart racing as she realized the stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. These were not mere business dealings, they were battles for control, reputation, and influence. After the meeting, Amneka finally let out a deep sigh, rubbing his temples. "They will not stop," he admitted. "They see weakness, and they attack. But you have been a beacon of clarity for me this week. You'll remind me of what matters beyond greed, power, and ambition." Amina felt a mixture of pride and fear. Pride that Amika valued her, fear because the world outside was ruthless, and she was just a young woman from the slums, suddenly thrust into battles she had never imagined. That evening, while the city glittered with lights and secret, jealousy and gossip began to spread like wildfire. Rumors of Amika and Amina's closeness leaked through the elite circles, reaching ears that would seek to exploit them. Friends, enemies, and former lovers stirred, each with their own agenda. One particularly dangerous whisper came from a estranged cousin, Ifenye, a man whose ambition matched his ruthlessness. He had always coveted a part of Emeka's empire and saw Amina as a vulnerability he could exploit. I never imagined a girl like that could influence him. If muttered bitterly to an associate, if I play my cards right, she becomes the key to everything I've wanted for years. Back at the mansion, Amina sensed a shift in Emeka. He became more vigilant, checking messages, making phone calls, and conferring with his most trusted advisors. Yet, despite the growing danger, he never let it affect the way he treated her. Each moment together remained tender, filled with quiet reassurance and intimacy. One night, as they sat on the balcony overlooking the city, Amina voiced her fears. Emeka, I see what's happening. People are jealous, they are scheming. I don't know if I can handle this. Kamika took her hands in his eyes steady and unwavering. You have already shown more courage than many who were born into this world. You have survived hardships far greater than this. And as for the rest, we face it together. I will not let anyone harm what we have. Not her, not anyone. His words, filled with determination and vulnerability, made Amina's heart ache. She realized that love, even in the shadow of danger and death, was a powerful force. And yet, the threats surrounding them were growing closer, sharper, more personal. The final blow came when a mysterious letter arrived for Amina. Its contents were simple but chilling. Warnings to stay away from Emeka or face consequences she could not imagine. Someone was watching, someone who would stop at nothing to destroy the fragile bond she and Emeka had formed. Fear gripped her, but so did resolve. She realized that love was never easy, and the path she had chosen was filled with danger, sacrifice, and courage. She looked at Emeka, his face calm but resolute, and made a silent vow. She would fight for what they had, no matter the cost. And somewhere deep in the shadows, Ifani and other rivals smiled, believing that the young girl and the dying billionaire were vulnerable, blind to the power of trust, love, and determination that neither of them yet realized had already begun to shape the outcome of their lives. The tension in the mansion had become almost unbearable. Amina and Emeka had grown closer, but outside forces were closing in, threatening everything they had built over a week of trust, vulnerability, and fragile intimacy. The warning letter, the whispers, the subtle manipulations that all culminated in an invisible storm, one that neither of them could ignore. Amina paced in the study, her hands trembling as she clutched the letter once more. Emeka, this isn't just jealousy. Someone wants to harm us. They're targeting you, and now me too. Emeka's expression was calm, but his eyes betrayed worry. I feared this, he said softly. I've lived long enough to know that power attracts envy. But you have given me more than I ever thought I could have. Your courage, your honesty, it has made me stronger than I could have imagined. And together, we will face this. For the first time, Amina truly saw the depth of the man before her. Not just a billionaire, not just a dying man, but someone whose heart had been hardened by life and power now softened by trust, vulnerability, and love. That night a confrontation arrived unexpectedly. Ifenye, Emeka's estranged cousin, stormed into the mansion, flanked by men who clearly intended to intimidate. The tension in the room was immediate, suffocating, as Amina stood frozen beside Ifenye. Emeka said, his voice calm but commanding, "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" Ifenye smirked, his eyes cold. "Oh, Emeka, still playing the noble billionaire. But you see, I have plans, and your little distraction," he glared at Amina, "has made you vulnerable. Step aside, and perhaps no harm will come to her." Amina felt a surge of fear but also determination. She realized in that moment that the connection she shared with Emeka was more powerful than the threats surrounding them. "You will not intimidate us," she said firmly, her voice trembling but resolute. "He may be powerful, but he is not alone. And neither am I." Emeka's hand brushed hers, a silent reassurance. "Stay close," he whispered. Then, turning to Ifenye, his eyes hardened. "You will leave now, or you will regret it." Ifenye laughed, a sound devoid of humor. regret. You don't make me laugh. This empire, your wealth, all of it can be mine. And you're too weak to stop me. But Emeka was no longer the man he had been a week ago. With Amina by his side, he was more human, more vulnerable, yet infinitely stronger. I am not weak, he said, and she has reminded me what courage is. Together, we are stronger than you think. The confrontation escalated, words sharp, tension thick, until Ifani's men hesitated, sensing something they could not define. Amina realized that her presence, her courage, had become a force within Emeka, giving him a resolve that intimidated even those who had long sought to overpower him. Finally, Ifini retreated, vowing revenge, but the immediate threat was neutralized. Emeka turned to Amina, his expression softening. You have no idea what you have done, not just for me, but for both of us. Your courage has saved more than just my life, it has saved our future. Amina felt tears streaming down her face, a mixture of relief, pride, and love. We survived, she whispered. Yes, Emeka said, pulling her close. And now, we live. The following days were filled with quiet healing. Emeka ensured Amina's safety, securing her place, not as a subordinate, but as a partner in the truest sense of the word. Their bond, forged in intimacy, trust, and courage, became unbreakable. One evening, as they watched the Lagos skyline from the balcony, Amina turned to him. Emeka, you asked for my trust, my heart, and I gave it, but I never expected it to change me so completely. And you changed me too, he replied softly. I came to you as a dying man, desperate for connection, but you gave me life in a way money never could. You reminded me of love, of courage, and of humanity. Amina smiled, leaning into him. Then I guess we both survived. In more ways than one. Emeka pressed his forehead to hers. Yes. And now, we face the world, together stronger, braver, and more alive than ever. Their story, once fraught with desperation, fear, and impossible choices, had become a testament to trust, courage, and love. The outside world, the jealousy, the schemes, the threats would continue, of course. But Amina and Emeka had discovered something far more powerful, a bond that could not be broken by wealth, ambition, or envy. As night fell over Lagos, the city lights twinkling like stars brought to earth, Amina realized that her life had changed forever. She had faced fear, temptation, and uncertainty, and emerged stronger, wiser, and profoundly connected to a man who had once seemed untouchable. And Emeka, once a dying billionaire desperate for one final wish, had discovered that life, love, and humanity could be found in the most unexpected places, sometimes in the heart of a girl from the slums who dared to trust, care, and love together. They had crossed lines, faced enemies, and survived storms of both the heart and the world. And in that survival, they discovered the ultimate truth that love, trust, and courage were the most valuable treasures of all, far beyond money, power, or fear.